Tonight, new recommendations from Canada's National Advisory Body on vaccines.
Even though many of us had 2 doses, we were essentially unvaccinated.
NACI is recommending giving 3rd doses of the COVID-19 vaccine to some vulnerable individuals, despite the WHO urging against it. Plus,
protect us, protect us,
Don't call me a hero. Don't call me a hero. Money talks.
the province's hospital workers rally downtown, demanding higher wage increases and better working conditions. And
probably at least a kilometer away, whereas before it used to be around the corner.
advance polls are now open, and your trip to the polling station is likely going to take longer this election. How the GTA is being impacted by the big drop in the number of polling locations. Good evening, I'm Kelda Yoon. The practice of supplying 3rd COVID-19 vaccine doses to the immunocompromised is controversial. The World Health Organization says developing nations with vaccine shortages need to be helped first. But now, Canada's National Advisory Body on Vaccines is endorsing 3rd doses for some. Here in Ontario, the decision is welcome news for those who say 2 doses just doesn't help them. Ardell Minukduk reports.
I really can't go to an indoor restaurant or a sporting event or a wedding.
60-year-old Derek Clark had a double lung transplant 2 years ago. Like other transplant recipients, 2 doses of the COVID-19 vaccine did not produce a positive antibody response.
There are approximately 12,000 organ transplant recipients in Ontario. So for all intents and purposes, even though many of us had 2 doses, we were essentially unvaccinated.
A study from the University Health Network determined that a 3rd dose was the best way to increase protection for transplant recipients. The National Advisory Committee on Immunization is using that data to recommend immunocompromised Canadians get 3 doses of the COVID-19 vaccine.
We generated that data right here in Toronto, and it was just very exciting that NACI has followed the science and is making these recommendations.
Clark says even though the province has moved into stage 3 of reopening, he's still stuck in stage 1. He got his 3rd shot on August 20th.
I have to wait 30 days and then I can get retested to see what my new antibody level response is.
Meanwhile, the World Health Organization is calling for wealthy countries to put a stop to 3rd shots at least until the end of September, citing inequities in the global inoculation campaign.
Only 41% approximately of people in this world have gotten access to a vaccine. In low and middle income countries, that's even lower. In fact, in low income countries, it's 1.9%.
The move by WHO was meant to enable at least 10% of the population of every country to have the chance at getting a vaccine.
Really, we haven't achieved much because we have allowed the virus to evolve elsewhere and become even more powerful than the Delta variant that we see now.
The Ministry of Health says Ontario has administered roughly 22,000 3rd doses. At the moment, there's no recommendation for those who aren't immunocompromised to get a 3rd shot. Ardell Minukduk, CBC News, Toronto.
The city says it's continuing to see a rise in COVID-19 vaccines being administered. Toronto Public Health says vaccines spiked since the province announced a proof of vaccination system. As of yesterday morning, more than 4.5 million doses had been administered across the city. And in the past 7 days alone, the city says it administered more than 43,000 doses. Just under 78% of residents 12 and up are now fully vaccinated, and nearly 84% have had at least their 1st dose. The city has set a goal of fully vaccinating 90% of residents. Hospital workers from across the province made their mark on downtown Toronto today, demanding higher wages and better working conditions. As Chris Glover tells us, many of these workers are angry over a new government bill that they say puts a squeeze on their pay.
protect us, protect us,
Hundreds of hospital workers feeling overworked, underpaid, and disrespected.
You are the frontline healthcare heroes for the pandemic.
They descended on the Ontario Hospital Association, the bargaining agent for Ontario hospitals.
He's right over there.
Goddamn right.
Yes.
Amid contract negotiations for roughly 70,000 Ontario health workers. OR nurse Barb Jones says the pandemic has made her job exponentially more difficult.
It's something that we do as nurses, and we do it and try and pick up the pieces behind us and keep going, and it's not an easy job.
Anybody know where Doug Ford is these days?
Their real target was the Premier and Bill 124, legislation that caps public sector compensation increases at 1%, all while being hailed for their bravery during COVID-19.
We need to protect our nurses and doctors, our frontline heroes.
You're absolute heroes, so thank you.
Come on, don't call me a hero. Money talks.
Sunnybrook nurse Tanya Rahimjatla says those are empty words.
Upgrade the pay for your staff. We are the front line of your so-called business, of your hospital. Pay us.
In a statement today, the government said Bill 124 is designed to protect public sector jobs and frontline services, and pointed out the legislation applies to over 1 million public sector workers.
No, I don't agree with the government that we are all like all others. We are healthcare workers. We're here looking after sick people, and we deserve more respect than that.
The union says the compensation squeeze limits their ability to negotiate increases to mental health supports.
So many of these frontline workers are suffering from PTSD. That goes into the budgeting of the 1% to get them the support that they need. We're better than that, and we owe them much more than that.
No longer just under threat from the virus, there have been anti-vaccine protests outside some Canadian hospitals.
It's got to stop. It's got to stop now.
Today, the NDP proposed a bill to create hospital safety zones to punish harassment or intimidation with a fine up to $25,000.
The pandemic is still here. Hospital workers are still showing up every day.
But Nurse Rahim Jutla says she and many others may not show up much longer.
Otherwise, you break. You break or you leave.
Without fair pay increases.
Together we can win!
In a statement tonight, the Ontario Hospital Association says that it did not ask the government for Bill 124, nor did it support it. But the association says that it will be working with union leadership towards a collective agreement that complies with current legislation, and they get back to the bargaining table on Monday. Chris Glover, CBC News, Toronto.
Meteorologist Colette Kennedy joins us now with a first look at the forecast. And Colette, a beautiful sunny day heading into the weekend, hoping for more of the same.
Yeah, I think you and many folks, Kelda, hoping for more of the same. We have at least some for you in terms of the really nice conditions. Temperatures, parts of the province were a little cooler today, but not the case. In fact, even a touch above seasonal. Toronto at 24, Hamilton, though, 22, and St. Catharines for you folks there. Daytime highs this afternoon, right around 23 degrees. So we do have nice conditions for now. We'll see some cloud cover kind of pulling itself in here through the overnight hours, like a little blanket just kind of moving up across the GTA and in fact all into eastern Ontario as well. But we'll stay into the drier conditions. You see some spotty showers trying to show up. I don't think we're going to see that at the surface into the city. So dry into Saturday, and then a lot of sunshine as high pressure kind of swings through. It doesn't stay long, but it really helps us out Saturday. Few spotty showers are possible into eastern Ontario, but it's going to be a very nice looking day. Southwesterly winds, though, are going to be somewhat breezy, pushing the temperature and humidity up, but just know a little gusty at times. 14 tonight, and we're going to see 26 for that high. Now, the second half of the weekend, that's another story. I'll talk about that coming up, Kelda.
All right. Thanks, Colette. The Progressive Conservatives have dropped Beach's East Door candidate Lisa Robinson after the resurfacing of racist and Islamophobic tweets posted on her Twitter back in 2017. The Liberal candidate in the riding, Nathaniel Erskine Smith, posted screenshots of the tweets today. The tweets refer to Muslims as terrorists and tell them to, quote, go home. Robinson initially denied the tweets were hers and threatened legal action. The party in a statement says racism and Islamophobia have no place in the party, and she has been terminated as a candidate. Well, if you live in the GTA, you could find yourself traveling further to vote in the upcoming federal election. Polling stations in 11 GTA ridings will be cut by more than half this year compared to 2019. Toronto Centre, in particular, saw the largest drop of any riding across Canada. That stark reduction has some voters concerned about equitable access to the ballot box on September 20th. Our Shannon Martin takes a deeper dive into the data.
10 days before voters head to the ballot box, you may want to double check where to go.
Much further away than it usually is. It's like probably at least a kilometer away, whereas before it used to be around the corner.
CBC Toronto has learned 11 ridings in the GTA will have at least 50% fewer polling locations. Here in the riding of King Vaughan, the number of places to vote has dropped by 62%, meaning some people could have to drive about 20 minutes to cast a ballot. And in one of the country's most dense electoral districts, Toronto Centre, an even bigger drop. Last election, there were 91 polling locations. This time, just 15.
It's a huge change, and those voting cards came late. I only got mine in mail today, and advanced polls start tomorrow.
This pedestrian advocate says his usual walk to vote on Election Day is about 5 minutes. Now, that's tripled.
It's an inconvenience for me, but for others who have young children, who use mobility aids, who are older and have a longer distance, have more difficulty walking, it's a real challenge just to get to that voting booth. It's a barrier to voting, and what I fear is that those people who would like to vote will just simply not vote.
Elections Canada says the change is because of the pandemic.
That schools, for one, decided in many places not to be available. That's understandable. Even some churches and other locations decided, quite understandably, that this was not the best election to be making their facility available. So the returning officers in each of the electoral districts had to figure out, well, how to deal with the fact that there were fewer places available. At the same time, they were balancing the need to make this a safe election and keep social distancing where it should be.
Elections Canada has been put into a very, very challenging situation where they're being asked to do this unprecedented election in 35 days. People will vote, like if they care about the issues, they'll vote. I'm confident that will happen. But the problem is that we need to get the word out and let people know that this change has happened.
Elections Canada said they've worked to make it easier for voters to cast their ballot by mail. You can apply to do so through Tuesday, September 14th. Shannon Martin, CBC News, Toronto.
The federal government confirmed today that a handful more Canadians have been evacuated from Afghanistan. Foreign Affairs confirms that 10 Canadians were on board a commercial flight that left the Afghan capital today, along with other foreign nationals. The evacuation was organized by Qatar. This is the second such flight this week. Yesterday, a Qatar Airlines plane departed Kabul carrying 43 Canadians, as well as American, British, and Ukrainian nationals. Liberal leader Justin Trudeau said today Ottawa is continuing to work with regional allies to remove both Canadians and Afghans who supported Canada's mission if they want to leave Afghanistan. Welcome back. With statistics showing Black students more likely to be expelled from school and twice as likely to face disciplinary measures, 17 Black-led organizations are now banding together to push back against systemic racism in the education system. Our Jessica Ng has the details.
Harambe. Harambe.
Harambe means pulling together. That's what these community groups say they're doing.
We're pulling together with all of our allies to support and protect African children in the education system.
A 2017 report found that almost half of TDSB students expelled over the previous 5 years were Black. Data from Peel District School Board shows Black students were almost twice as likely to be the subject of disciplinary measures at school. They're also more likely to have fewer academic opportunities.
They're constantly pushing against the system that tells them that you can't access that.
Patricia Falape says she felt that discrimination when a teacher encouraged her then 7th grade daughter, Maisha, to take applied math.
I don't think in my daughter's case the teacher was trying to be mean, but the teacher felt confident lowering the bar because less was expected of her.
Statistics Canada data shows 94% of Black youth hope to get a bachelor's degree or other higher education, but only 60% believe they can. An educator herself, Falape knew the course could limit Maisha's options down the road.
My husband and I stood firm and said no, and the teacher was against us.
Now her organization will help pair families with an SFA, or Student and Family Advocate. SFAs provide one-on-one coaching for families with kids between ages 6 and 25.
If they say we need support connecting with this principal because we don't feel comfortable or confident enough, then we support them in that regard.
Kemi Jacobs of the Delta Family Resource Center says SFAs go even further.
Just having a student and family advocate go with them changes the nature of the discussion, because the authorities think more before they act.
The provincial government is allocating $6 million to fund the initiative in Ottawa, Hamilton, and the GTA until October 2023 as part of the Black Youth Action Plan.
And coordinators say there's no limit to the number of families and kids they can help. Their message to those who feel like they're struggling and could benefit from the help of an SFA?
If it feels wrong in your gut, it is wrong.
And reach out for help. Jessica Ng, CBC News, Toronto.
Mainly clear tonight, becoming cloudy overnight, but making way for another gorgeous sunny day. Currently a comfortable 19 degrees downtown. All right, going back to Colette now with a look at your extended forecast. And Colette, let's take a moment to talk about Hurricane Larry now hurtling towards the East Coast.
Yeah, that's right. So we want to update everyone for our friends and family that we have in Newfoundland as we see this hurricane moving in. And it coincides with a few things, the chronological peak of hurricane season for this year, but also high tides. So that kind of pushes those storm surge conditions up even further. So moving over tonight by 3:30, look at this, already kind of passing across the Avalon and then making haste. So much of the day we've been seeing it moving at more than 50 kilometers an hour. So that's the good news, that it will pass by quickly. The bad news, hurricane warning. One of the biggest problems is going to be those winds. So those winds of 100 kilometers an hour, but then gusting to 130 to 140. Could see some trees coming down, some damage, power lines being pulled down, looking for that. And then even up as far as Bonavista North here, we do have tropical storm warnings, then some wind warnings and rainfall warnings that you see there extending up towards Labrador as well. So watching that carefully as we move through the night, and then taking a look through our night, we're just seeing some of that cloud cover pushing into southwest and eastern Ontario. As it moves through, I am anticipating dry conditions, although you see a few spotty showers, dry for the GTA and back into southwestern Ontario, and that'll be the case tomorrow through the day when we're looking at a lot of sunshine and a really nice day, but those southwesterly winds kicking up, pushing the temperature and the humidity up as well. We're talking high 20s for southwestern Ontario, at least mid-20s around the GTA. But as we get Saturday night into Sunday, a few spotty showers early, some heavier stuff, so pockets of rain certainly possible through the day on Sunday. Not the whole day. You'll get some dry periods if you're trying to plan for outdoor things and adventures, but just know there'll be some wet weather Sunday too. Your lows for tonight for southwestern Ontario. There's that warmth for tomorrow. Very summer-like weather for this weekend. Tonight, 11 to 14 for the lows around the Golden Horseshoe. Highs tomorrow, I'm taking you to 27 there, Markham. 26 for the city, and then you see a little cooler Sunday and some instability coming into mid next week as well, Kelda.
Thanks. Well, it had to end sometime. The Toronto Blue Jays' hot streak is over after losing tonight to the Baltimore Orioles. They had 8 straight wins, including a series sweep against the New York Yankees. Toronto looked like it was out of the running for a playoff spot at the beginning of last month, but the recent wins now have them within striking distance. They're currently 4th in AL East standings. And the Toronto Raptors are finally coming home. After a season spent in Tampa, Florida, the team has been given the green light to play at Scotiabank Arena this season. The Raptors will open their preseason against the Philadelphia 76ers on October 4th, playing at the downtown arena for the first time in more than 19 months. As for how many fans will get to cheer them on, that is still unclear. Well, finally tonight, the next time you're making your way through the city, you may find art in some unexpected places. It's part of a new campaign called Artworks TO. As Natalie Collada explains, it's hoped this creative endeavor will give the city's economy a boost as it recovers from the pandemic.
It's a statement on climate change. 5 icebergs made almost entirely of styrofoam, salvaged from a Toronto demolition site, offering a sharp contrast to the natural impermanence of melting ice.
It's because of the vision of this project and the funding that came with it that I could actually build 5 giant icebergs and float them here at Lake Ontario.
The installation is one of more than 100 pieces of art around Toronto, part of Artworks TO.
It livens up the public realm. It gets people talking. It creates destinations so that people can connect with each other and connect with their city again and connect with art.
The year-long project starts on September 22nd and includes existing art pieces around the city, as well as commissioning new ones, popping out in places you might not expect.
People that have routinely come home from doing their grocery shopping that come around a corner and there's a projection on a building, or there is a photograph that's installed on a brick wall, or there is a sculpture floating here at Ontario Place. And I think that there's never been a better time for the public of Toronto and visitors to Toronto to be enlightened, awed, surprised, maybe angered if they disagree with something in the piece, than now.
The city created an online map of various works, from murals to light installations, sculptures from decades ago to more modern pieces. Many say officials created by BIPOC artists.
Artworks Toronto is also fostering a more representative face for public arts in Toronto, and one that reflects the experience, origins, and the values of our people.
And to the economy. According to the city, pre-pandemic, the arts and culture sector annually contributed $11.3 billion to the GDP.
It sends a very important message about who we are and what we are. Yes, we're a city of business, and yes, we're a city of values that embrace each other and so on, but we're also a city of creativity and innovation that tells stories to each other through art. And I think that's a hugely important message to send for the economic well-being of the city.
One piece of art at a time. Natalie Collada, CBC News, Toronto.
And that is our show for you tonight. Thank you so much for watching. Maribel Tarouk has you covered this weekend, and I will see you back here on Monday. Have a great night, everyone.